Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Vancouver Rain Draft to Glory franchise mode here in MLB The Show 23. So, in last episode, we had one of our better drafts, I'd say, in this series, because we haven't had a good draft in quite some time, but we managed to finally have a good draft, and it was much better than a lot of other teams. As you can see, with our 5th overall pick, we selected Carmen Osuna, and this guy is going to be a beast to have, probably behind Garth Howe. I don't think he's ever going to eclipse Garth Howe until Garth Howe actually starts dropping off. But yeah, Osuna is going to be a really good player for us to have in our top 2 in terms of our rotation, because the other 3 guys are probably going to be made up of somebody like Soto. There's like tons of random prospects we have that have beat potential that might end up being in like our 3rd, 4th, and 5th spot on our pitching rotation. And probably a lot of the other starting pitchers will end up being used as relievers at some point, just because we haven't been able to draft a lot of relief pitchers, because it seems like every year there's not a really stud relief pitcher that we could draft. So that's one area we definitely still need to work on, but at the same time we could always just use starting pitchers as relievers. There's no problem really with that. We also drafted Kobayashi, and he also has some good potential. He's going to be a bit of a long shot, but I think he should be able to develop into at least a pretty solid potential player, because the fact that he's already a 56, if he was on like the 50 overall range or lower than that, then I would have problems. But him being 56 at 18, I think he gets a chance at AA as early as next season. We also got a couple other good starting pitcher prospects like Cora, who might end up being something solid. Cologne might be something solid, but he is a little bit older. We also got Joe Reeder and Theodore Ackerman for potential catcher prospects, so those guys kind of just get thrown into the logjam of catchers we have in the system. And we also drafted Julio Hernandez, and this guy was a completely blind pick, but he has a really good potential. He is a very low overall for a 20-year-old, so I don't think he's going to reach that 94 potential, but I could easily see him still maybe getting into like the 70 to 80, something like 85 range. I don't think he's going to get that into that 94. He has to develop really quickly to do that, and it might be kind of hard with the logjam of prospects we have on our roster. But we by far had the best draft in the entire MLB, because we got 3 A potential players. I think there was one other team that actually had a pretty good draft, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Milwaukee Brewers. Yeah, it was the Milwaukee Brewers. This was their first 2 picks. They got pretty good pitchers in Vera and Moser. Those guys are going to be studs for their rotation. Other than that, the rest of their draft was solid, but not insanely good. So I would say that between us and them, we probably had the best drafts in the entire MLB, because most teams didn't even get an A potential player. Some of them got some high beat potentials, but they're still not really that great out of the gate. Like this Yamaguchi guy, for example, is a major project, but he still will be probably something solid at the MLB level. It just might take a lot more time than it would for somebody like Vera, because Vera and Moser, both those guys could easily be in the MLB probably within the next, I guess, 3 to 5 years at most. So it should be interesting to see how good the Brewers do with those guys in their lineup. But anyways, that was that, and let's get into getting the rest of the season done, because we got a lot of stuff to do in this episode, because we got some major contract extensions, as you can see, to do in the offseason, including Giancarlo Sixto, who I think I'm going to probably sign for 9 years. That way his contract ends at the exact same time as Garth Howe's does, and the fact that he would be signed till he's like 33. I just feel like some guys might drop off quite considerably fast, and I don't want to sign guys for 14 plus years. So we are going to be doing that in the offseason, though. And then, yeah, we have still Trevino, Pip, Robert, Goss, for example, that we have to re-sign in the offseason as well. So this is going to be probably a pretty loaded episode. So if this is a very long episode, I do apologize about that, but we got quite a bit of business to work with. So let's start by finishing off the AA season, which ends on the 14th. So let's go to the end of this month, just take it a little bit slower. It looks like AA is not going to be making the playoffs this year, because they are not doing good. So that's kind of interesting. Let's just go on and fix on that. We're winning a couple of games this month. Todd Davies is almost back. That's good, because that's one of our catcher prospects, I think. That's not a good injury. Oh my goodness. MLB-wise, we just lost Ollie Gelman with a fractured hand. He's out 2 to 3 months, which is a major, major loss. He's been having a great year. This is probably his best season yet. And unfortunately, he's going to be out for the rest of the year with that injury. So that's not great, but at least I think it will give that left fielder Steiner a chance to actually be able to play a little bit more, so that's good. But at the same time, I do not like having my top guys get injured. How has their MLB team done in that month? Hey, they won a decent amount of games. 50 wins on the season. Like I said in last episode, the most we ever got in a season was 55 wins. So I think we're definitely due to beat that this year, which is good. Yeah, let's continue simulating because I don't want to take a look at MLB stats yet. So let's get to the end of AA. Then we'll take a look at some AA players and see how good they did. Also, if you guys see anybody that should get an upgrade based on their season in AA, let me know, because then I might make some adjustments there. We do got to call up some players for the September call-ups. Almost forgot about that, so we will probably just call up. Is there anybody down here that's just crap? No, nobody's there. We got to call up the worst players because I don't really want to call up guys just yet. So, for example, we'll call up Briggs since he's on our 40-man roster. We'll move him to the MLB because we're not trying to contend this season because we know we're not going to be able to make it back into the playoffs anyway. So might as well just call up the worst players possible and give us a better chance at getting a higher pick in this year's draft. Obviously, there's still a lottery this offseason, which we're also going to find out about. So that's going to be interesting to see where we are drafting next year, and hopefully it's a solid pick still. So there we go. We have 28 players now on our MLB roster. Let's finish off the AA season. Let's go autofix on that AAA roster thing. Autofix on that. It looks like Trevino and Steiner have now been injured as well for a couple days. I hate all these injuries. Like, we even turned down the injuries yet. We're still like having all these injuries, which is kind of outrageous, but I guess this game just has more injuries because there's more players to manage. But our AA team finishes 23 and 46, so half the amount of wins is losses, which is not great, but oh well. Let's take a look at AA stats and see what the team did. So Pablo Silva, who's one of our better starting pitcher prospects, he was getting more used as a reliever because I did look at this a little bit before the episode started. He's been getting used more as a reliever, but he has been pretty good at times. As you can see, he's got a 2.85 ERA through the season, a 1.31 WHIP. Obviously, he's not going to have the quality starts because he doesn't start games, but I'd say a pretty successful season for Pablo Silva, considering that WAR is 4, which is really good. So Pablo Silva already has an A potential, so he might be due for an upgrade. I don't remember what his potential number is, but he's definitely a guy that could have a potential upgrade. Sparbori might also be due for an upgrade. He does only have C potential, but he was getting used as a starter. 28 games started, and he had a 3.27 ERA and a 1.31 WHIP. He had 18 quality starts, so more than half of his games were quality starts. I do think he deserves a little bit of a bump up for sure. Not sure how much. Like I said, you guys can let me know down below in the comments on who gets boosts and who doesn't. Tim Soto, one of our better prospects, 68 now at 21. 27 games started. 13 quality starts, so half of his games around were quality starts, so that's not bad. I don't know if it's worth the bump up. The WAR says maybe, but I'm not 100% sure on that. At least he has B potential, so we know that he's going to be probably a solid player for us down the road, but he's still definitely a few years out from making it to the majors. Other than that, we do have Delmon Rangel, who looks solid. The WHIP is a little bit high. He did start 16 games, and he only had 2 quality starts. Damn, that's not good. The WAR is okay, but still 2 quality starts out of 16 games. I don't really like that. That's probably why his WHIP is high, but his ERA is decent, so he's kind of a mixed bag in terms of what his stats are like. Ron Francisco, wow, that's actually not bad. 3 ERA and a 1.22 WHIP. He's up to a 65 at 20. He started 27 games and had 13 quality starts, so he might be due for a little bit of an upgrade too. A little bit of one, because that's not a bad season considering he's a C potential player. Carlos Murillo, same boat. Solid season, it looks like, for him. 26 games started and 17 quality starts. Yeah, Murillo might need a little bit of a boost. He is already B potential, but he's 23 and 64, so he's taking a little bit longer to develop, but he's still somewhat solid for a player down there in AA. We also have Todd Davies, 22 RBIs this season, no home runs, so that's not great. The OPS is not that good either, and he also got injured, so he might be due for a little bit of a downgrade, but he is also currently injured, so who knows? Maybe the injury played factor, but he had no home runs this year. So maybe that's why we lost a lot of games. Our pitchers were doing good, but other than that, we didn't have any good prospects doing anything. Like, yeah, Rafael Rodriguez, not doing too well. He's developing a bit. He does have B potential, but a 229 average. He's probably getting used off the bench a bit more, but still not that great. And that's it for Double A. Now we got to take a look at AAA and see how AAA finishes off the year. They're currently not going to make the playoffs either, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Let's see how these guys finish off the year. They did finish off the season with a win on the last game. That's nice. And it was a 4-0 win. Let's take a look at those player stats as well. So AAA. So Bill Pineda is developing really well. This guy has C potential. I think he's due for an upgrade. He was batting a 271 in his first season in AAA. He had an 823 OPS. He had 23 home runs, which is pretty damn good. Yeah. And then also the 74 RBIs. So, yeah, I think Bill Pineda is definitely going up to like a B potential type player. Or he should, at least, my opinion. 77 overall is also really good. Like, he honestly might be in our lineup next season based on that overall. So, we might have to add him to our 40-man roster to start next episode. So, let me know on that, guys, because he might honestly be an MLB player right out of the gate almost. Luis Guzman. Pretty solid numbers. He's obviously more of a closing pitcher. Yeah, it looks pretty solid. The WAR is nothing super high up, but still not bad from Guzman. He is taking a little bit longer to develop, but he also might be really close to being on the cusp of the MLB. Bobby Hyde, not too bad. Not too bad. Up to a 75 at 20. 14 games started because he was being used as a reliever at times too. 6 quality starts. It's not bad. His ERA and WHIP are pretty good, but the quality starts is a little bit weird. But the WAR is fantastic. So I think it's because he was being used as a reliever at times as well. But yeah, good stats it looks like from Bobby Hyde in my opinion. Brian Morris on the other hand looks like he's still kind of struggling. He does have C potential only, so that's at least kind of accurate. But 75 overall now. And yeah, it looks like 14 quality starts. How much games did he start? 30. Half of his games were quality starts, but to me those numbers don't really scream insane. Like the WHIP is better than the ERA, I'd say though. It's really tough to tell. He's only 21, so maybe he'll find himself, but that's not necessarily the best numbers for AAA. Darren Poles, also 75 with C potential. He started 30 games this year. Goddamn. And 15 quality starts. So half of his games were good starts, so that's also positive. But once again, he's a C potential player already, so I don't think he deserves a downgrade if he had a bad season. I don't know if he deserves an upgrade either. He might just have to stay where he is. Sammy Gomez, 11 and 11, up to a 73 at 19. He is one of our younger pitchers down there in Triple. 30 games started and 18 quality starts. So the quality starts scream pretty good. ERA a little bit high, obviously the WHIP as well. But it seems like he did start games pretty well for the most part. We also have Ray McMahon, batted a 267 this year. Looking pretty good. Yeah, good season again from Ray. He's taken a little bit longer to develop, but he might end up being our shortstop prospect that makes the majors at some point. And he is eligible for the Rule 5 draft, so we will have to probably add him to our 40-man roster this offseason. Other than that, we also have Josh Groves. Not going to go super in-depth with some of these players just because I don't want this episode being an hour long. But then again, some of you guys would be okay with that, I think. But Josh Groves, pretty good season from him, a 267 average, 16 home runs, 73 RBIs. Kenny Oliger, really good numbers it looks like to me. Let's take a look at the quality starts. So 31 games started, 15 quality starts. Kenny might be due for a little bit of an upgrade. In terms of potential at least. Brad Thornton, a 230 average, but he is picking up home runs and RBIs, so kind of a mixed bag with him. He is already a C potential though, so not really due for a downgrade, but not really an upgrade either. Kellen Berger had a really good season, the D potential guys, so we lowered him in potential and he all of a sudden starts tearing it on again. That's funny. Yeah, he had a good year. He's definitely maybe due for a little bit of an upgrade again. I don't know. But he had a really good season, all things considered. Norman Pena, not great, but he is a D potential player, so it's not like we can make him much better anyways, or much worse. So yeah, that's not good. Pete Tavares, pretty mid. 15 games started, 1 quality start, but he is a relief pitcher, so we were using him as a starting pitcher, I guess, for some of it, which is kind of weird. Michael Chu batted at 271. He did have a lot of at-bats, just didn't get a lot of home runs. He's more of a contact guy, it seems like, but yeah, he's developing quite well. He is 22 though already, so he is going to be a late bloomer for sure, but at least he's batting quite well down there in AAA, which means he might get some good development throughout the next few seasons. William Halpern didn't really have a lot of at-bats, had a good average though, so he was probably getting used more as a bench player, but he was actually doing much better than last year. Ponce, really good numbers from Ponce, I think. Yeah, it looks like really good numbers from Ponce as a relief pitcher. So maybe that C potential gets bumped up a little bit more again. And Alfredo Segura is not anything at all. This guy is definitely a bust. 57 at 24, you're not going to make it at all at this point, my guess. So there is all the AAA stats. Let's get the MLB done now because we do got to finish our MLB season. Damn, I didn't even realize our MLB team won like 15 games and a shit ton during the last month. So we have won 65 games, which is our most wins in our team's history in a sense, I guess, unless you include the A's, but the most in Vancouver's history. Let's get the rest of this season done. There we go. We finished 66 and 96, so that is definitely our best season to date. I am really proud of this team, how far they have come this season. Let's take a look at our player stats. Let's start off with our pitching rotation, even though I don't want to take a look at Garth Howard really yet, but I do. Let's start off with the worst players, though. William Montero. Yeah, not good. He is up to a 70 at 25, so at least he's developing, but he started 32 games this year. He had a better ERA than last year and a better whip, but not by much. And yeah, that FIP is disgustingly high. So yeah, Montero, I'd say he's down. He should go down to a C potential player. Those numbers are not good. There's a lot of people in AAA already that could take his roster spot easily. So yeah, I'm not really sold on Montero at all. Todd Gauss, who's a relief pitcher being used as a starter. All things considered, we can't really we can't really put pressure on him to be a good pitcher because obviously he's more of a reliever. He started 32 games. How much quality starts? 1 quality start. I mean, all things considered, even though the ERA and the whip is really high, he's a relief pitcher and he's not really being played in his roles. So obviously he'll be used more as a relief pitcher probably next season when there's guys in our lineup. But yeah, it kind of sucks that we had to use him as a starter this year because those numbers look terrible. Lindsey Raymond, of course, is terrible, but he's like a really bad potential guy anyways. Probably not going to be here much longer on this team. And then we have our top 2 pitchers. Gary McAllister, 13 and 13 with a 4.2 ERA and a 1.27 whip. That is way better than last year in terms of both ERA and whip. The WAR is also good. The FIP is also improved a little bit. So I'd say it was an okay year for Gary. I don't think it's worth a downgrade or worth an upgrade either. I think he should just probably stay where he is. He is already starting to decline a little bit, looks like, which is not great, but there you go on that front. And of course, the one we've been waiting for, 98 overall, Garth Howe. How did he do? Really insanely good, and he had a winning record this year, 12 in 8 with a 2.92 ERA and a 1.13 whip. Oh baby, Garth Howe is the man. He is the man. He started 33 games this year, improved ERA wise and whip wise, and he had 23 quality starts. So 23 of his 33 games were good starts. Awesome year for Garth Howe. And that FIP is also really damn good. So it doesn't look like he won a Cy Young because we didn't get any award notifications, but he definitely would have been probably in the running for one, my guess. I'd say he could easily win one next season if our team's more competitive. That's my guess. And yeah, he's still signed for a long, long time, and he's going to be making less and less each season, which is really, really good. So I do love Garth Howe. Probably one of my favorite players in this series, I'm going to say. In terms of everybody else, Parsons didn't play. Bacon, he's not really anything anyways. Castillo looks like that. I'm going to only focus mostly on the guys we drafted. Rubel, who we took in the Rule 5, not very good, it looks like. Let's see that FIP number. Yeah, not very good from Doug Rubel, but it is what it is. It's not like we actually drafted him. Jack Birch, who was good last year, does not look like he was as good this year. Yeah, he kind of had a rough time compared to last year. That's not good. He might have to get some points demoted because of that. That sucks. Ken Robert, not very good. He is developing. He's only 23. This was his first season in the MLB. The ERA and the whip is not good. Yeah, he kind of had a little bit of a rough time, but he is a young guy, so maybe that's why. And then Dennis Lake had a terrible win-loss ratio as a closer, but the ERA, the whip was good. He's up to a 91. Oh my goodness. I kind of wish I gave him that long-term contract that Nick was mentioning in the Discord, because this guy is going to be a really good closer for a long time. So if I would have had him locked up already, that would have been nice. But that FIP number, fantastic. Not as good as last year, but still really damn good year for him. Now we got to get into our batting rotation. Let's take a look at this. So Antoine Trevino had, let's see, 17 home runs, 50 RBIs. He batted at 284 this year, so breakout year for Trevino for sure. And 833 OPS, that's pretty damn good. And he does have still 2 more years of ARB, but he's going to be probably an expensive player down the road. He's definitely developing in the right way. And our team's definitely developing in the right way, because look how good our roster looks on paper by comparison to like last year even. Gary Steiner, 75 overall now, 8 potential still. His average was way worse than last year, but he had the same home runs, the more RBIs, an OPS above 600 at least. I'd say this is definitely a down year for Steiner. I don't know if it's warranted for a demoting or whatnot, but still, there is Steiner. Giancarlo Sixto, our man, we're going to have to sign this offseason. Not a career high in home runs and tied for a career high in RBIs, but that batting average, a 294. The last 3 years, he's had a 290 average for all of them. And the OPS, good again. And the WAR, good again. Yeah, what a good year for Sixto. He's going to be so damn pricey, but he's going to be worth it. He's going to be worth it for sure. Jeff Pipp, kind of had a redemption year. Yeah, he kind of had a redemption year a little bit. The average is the best of his career. The home run and the RBI count is, actually the home run is, the RBI one is a little bit lower than his career high, but yeah, he definitely had his best year yet, which is good. It's good to see Pep almost return to form, considering he had that injury trouble a few years ago. Ozzy Cardenas, oh, he's our first player. Oh my goodness. Ozzy's our first player in this series to hit 30 home runs in the season and over 100 RBIs. What a year for Ozzy Cardenas. Yeah, he's definitely warranted to being an A potential player now. Wow. Well, when he was getting 13 home runs, I didn't expect him to develop his hitting, like his power game that much, but he literally crushed it this year. 34 home runs, and then the 119 RBIs, a 294 average, which is the best of his career since his first season. That OPS is pretty damn good as well. That's his best OPS, I think, of his career. And of course, like the WAR and whatnot is the best of his career. What a year for him. I'm still glad we have him locked up for 3 more years at least. Hopefully we can re-sign him after that, but my goodness, Ozzy is a monster. Cuero doesn't matter that much because we didn't even draft this guy. George Pinheiro, really good year from Pinheiro. He's only a 76, but he had a career high in average. This is his second season. Career high in RBIs and home runs. His OPS was solid. Yeah, not Gary Steiner, what am I saying? George Pinheiro, I get those two mixed up, was really good this year. He actually might be our number 1 shortstop, and then McMahon eventually could be like a number 2 shortstop at the major league level. Bill O'Donnell, 14 home runs, 67 RBIs. Pretty on par with last year's performance. His average was a little bit lower. OPS was a little bit lower, but still, looks like he had an okay year, all things considered. But the WAR is not that great. Steve Schneider as a DH, up to an 80 overall, so it's good to see him in the 80 overall range. Almost a career high in home runs, not so much in the RBI department. The average is still terrible, but I mean, he's still hitting home runs, so he just has a really lack of discipline, it seems like, at the plate. There's that. And let's take a look at some of our other guys. So, Buster Cross, I think, yeah, we took this guy in a Rule 5. He was okay. I don't know how long he's going to be with this team for, but he was okay. Fletcher Hoffman, he obviously got a chance to be a depth guy for us this year. Not really much of anything, but then again, he's not a really high up potential. Anyways, we could lower him to a D potential player, but I don't know about that. C potential might be still fine. So there is our player stats. Let's take a look at the league leaders and awards and stuff for the season. And I honestly don't know if I should do the offseason in this episode or what, because we're already pretty late into this episode, and I still have a lot of stuff to do this offseason. I'm going to still try and go through the offseason, but I might in the future episodes. So let me know your opinions on this, if I should do the offseason in a separate episode, and then basically the rest of the season simulation will be in one episode, just because I want to kind of make these episodes not too long for you guys. So let's take a look at the league leaders, see if anybody's up there for us. So Ozzy was up there in hits behind Alvarez and Witt Jr. What else we got here? Double wise, nobody up there. Giancarlo Sixto was up there in triples. Pretty damn good. Yeah, I think the reason we didn't have anybody up there in doubles is because Gelman got injured. Because Gelman would have been probably, yeah, Gelman should have been all the way up here in the top 50, right? Yeah, I see he was up there with 33, but that injury probably took him out of the race for that. Home run wise, Cardenas finished tied for 5th in home runs. I did not expect that. Nolan Gorman almost hit 50 home runs though this year. That's crazy. If we were in the NL though, look at this. Cardenas would have been almost up there with Shohei Ohtani in home runs. That's kind of outrageous to say that. RBI wise, Cardenas was number 2, only behind Nolan Gorman. Damn, he was that close to having the most RBIs. Tied with Casas. Run wise, nobody up there. Nobody up there. Let's just see anybody else up there in these type of things. Nobody up there in wins, obviously, because Garth Howe had 12 wins because our team was not good enough. ERA wise, though, Garth Howe was 5th. Or actually, he was technically tied for 4th with 2.92 with Kyle Harrison. The best being Shane McClanahan with a 264. He likely won the Cy Young this year based on that. Garth Howe was up there in strikeouts, tied for 1st with Kyle Harrison. Complete games, Gary McAllister had 3 complete games this year. That's at least something positive to take away from his stats. Garth Howe and McAllister were both up there in innings pitched. Whip wise, Garth Howe was number 2 behind Kirby. And Garth Howe was number 2 in pitching WAR. Yeah, I think Garth Howe was very close to winning a Cy Young, but Kyle Harrison likely wins it because that pitching WAR is way better. And in the batting WAR wise, nobody's up there for us. Cardenas probably up there still somewhere, right? He has to be, right? 60 was number 20, so Cardenas wasn't even up there, which is kind of weird based on his numbers, but he's all the way at 34. So there's that. Let's take a look at those awards. See if anybody's up there. Yeah, Ozzy was up there for the MVP. He was a candidate for MVP this year. That's actually insane considering this team is not close to a playoff spot right now. Wow. If Nolan Gorman and Alvarez weren't as good as they were this year, Cardenas could have won it. That's absolutely insane. Considering this guy was like a 3rd round pick, my God. I can see why you guys love Ozzy so much, and I love this guy too. Cy Young wise, yeah, Garth Howe was a candidate for the Cy Young this year. Just missed out because Kirby's going to end up winning it with that 20-7 record. Kyle Harrison was number 2, and then Garth Howe was number 3. So we might have some future winners next season, who knows, based on guys getting upgrades and all of that. Let's see, anybody else up there for us this season in terms of awards. Cuero was up there for Gold Glove for catcher, not that it matters because we didn't even draft him. I don't even know where he came from, to be honest. Sixto was up there for Golden Glove for left fielders. And then we have Silver Sluggers. Cardenas did get a Silver Slugger for first base, so that's nice to see him get a Silver Slugger. And that is that for awards in our side of the league. Let's take a look at the NL, just briefly go through this. So in case you guys wanted to know about the NL, and we'll get through this off season. This episode is definitely going to be a little bit of a longer one. But yeah, I think starting next season, maybe I'll break it up into a couple parts instead, just to make it a little bit more friendly for you guys, so you don't have to sit through like 40-50 minutes to find out what happens. Okay, guys, so at this point in the episode, for some weird reason, my Elgato just decided to show a black screen and not record anything else. Well, it did record my voice, but it just showed a black screen, so it didn't record any game footage. So unfortunately, the entire offseason that you normally would have seen was basically lost. But good for us, at least, I can basically just recap pretty much most of what happened, because it's pretty much the same thing every offseason. We try and keep this roster together. The most important thing, obviously, that we were going into with the offseason was to try and re-sign Giancarlo Sixto, which we managed to do so on a 9-year deal. As you can see, a bit expensive for the first few years, but I think once he gets to, like, I don't know, 30 years old, I feel like anything below 30 million is not that bad. 19.9 his last season is going to be really nice, but he is pretty expensive. But him and Howe are basically the future of this team for sure, I'd say. And obviously you also have like a lot of other good players too, like Cardenas, who had a great season. So there is basically that. Let me show you guys what we currently have for our roster potentially for next season. I do think adding Hyde, Morris, and Poles to our 40-man roster might be beneficial, because they are technically the best players we have starting pitcher wise to get into our rotation. Then we could send somebody like Silva back down to AAA because he's not ready yet. Obviously, I don't want to rush him either because he's one of the better prospects we have, but we are starting to finally build up a decent rotation. It's also going to be interesting to see what guys like Osuna do in probably AAA next year, because he's already 68, so might as well give him a chance at AAA right out of the gate. Here's our relief pitcher area right now. I did try and let go a decent amount of players that we weren't going to use anymore, because we have pretty much like almost a roster full of just players we've drafted now, because we are going to be going into year 10 in next episode, which is insane. So there's Lake and Robert. Guzman, I don't know if he's necessarily ready yet. We could always wait one more year on Guzman. If you guys think so, we could always send him back down for one more year. But I think he's definitely close. Catcher-wise, this doesn't matter too much, but I don't think William Halpern's definitely not ready yet for the MLB, so I think I might send him back down to triple for sure. But he had to be added to our roster as well, just because of the Rule 5 draft. First baseman-wise, obviously we got Ozzy. And Michael Chu, I don't want him up here already as well, so I honestly might just call up Sita and send Chu back down to triple. We also have Trevino, obviously, who's had some great years, up to an 86 now, which is great, makes our team a lot more balanced. Then we have Pip and Schneider. We also do have, technically, Casilla, who's in the MLB, which is good, I guess, because Kobayashi needs to be playing down there in AA. He's going to be the number 2, I guess, behind Dwayne Green, unless he doesn't play shortstop. But still, he'll get position anyways. We also have Pinheiro. We have Cross, McMahon. I don't want McMahon in the MLB already at this point either, so he's likely going to be designated for an assignment down in AAA for at least another 1 or 2 years. We have Sixto, we have Steiner, so that's pretty good for the left field. Center fielding wise, we have Gelman. One thing I do want to wonder about is Bill Pineda. Should he get into the MLB this year? Because obviously Josh Groves is not ready yet, but Bill Pineda technically is. So, so I think Bill Pineda as a number 2 center fielder might be a good option. We also do have Bill O'Donnell, who, yeah, he's kind of not the highest overall. So Bill Pineda honestly might take over Bill O'Donnell's spot at some point. So the Bill might take the other Bill spot. It's kind of funny. But that's basically what our roster might look like going into next season. I'll also show you guys quickly the top prospects as well in the MLB. You can see we do have a couple prospects. So Kobayashi makes his debut at number 9. Silva at number 12. So another year for Silva to be in the top 50. And then Osuna is all the way down there at number 18. So we do have 3 prospects in the top 50 this year, which is good considering last year we only had the 1. So there is all that. I think that's almost it, if I'm not mistaken. Based on our ranking stuff still, we're only really good speed-wise, but I think our team is definitely coming together. Like, I'm very excited to see what Garth Howe does this year again. Because, yeah, Garth is a complete monster, and Gary's a kind of an okay player, but once we get maybe all those other 75s in, if we decide to add them to our roster, maybe I'll make our rotation a lot better this season. because I don't want Pablo Silva, like I said, already playing. I just think he's better suited for AAA for at least another year, or else he might end up like Montero, and we don't want that. So there is all that, and I think that's pretty much all I wanted to show from the offseason. I'll show you guys our depth chart again so you guys can kind of see that I think we are getting closer to being a very good team soon. Like, we're definitely getting close to being a playoff team. Because if you look at like our roster in the next 2 seasons even, at that point, pretty much most of our roster players will be in the 78 and above range. So, like, obviously the weakness would probably be, in this sense, it would probably be the outfield. But the outfield also, like, they might be a 78, but they have good contacting and stuff like that. But like, look at 2033 even. You have Sixto at a 98 over here in the left field potentially. You have Pinheiro on shortstop. You have Steiner in the outfield, Pineda in the outfield, Trevino up there, Cardenas. This might be our team that ends up making the playoffs or getting close to it. Garth Howe as a 99 is absolutely insane when that gets to that point because he's already 98. And then even we have like Dennis Lake still as a closer and whatnot. So our team is looking pretty good for the future, and for right now, I think we're definitely getting close to that territory of potentially being a playoff team, which is great. We do have to re-sign Lake this offseason or even in the next episode, but he's going to be probably a little bit pricey, but we could definitely afford him for maybe another 3 years or whatever. And then like guys like Ollie Gelman, wow. I was not expecting that much, so Ollie's going to be very expensive. But he's kind of makes it worth it in a sense, based on his numbers from last year. Yeah, like a little bit. Damn, yeah, he's going to be pricey. There is going to be some expensive players for sure, but I think our team is definitely on the path to being a successful team soon. It's going to be exciting to see what we do this season, and also we do have the 5th overall pick. That's one thing I forgot to mention, because the draft lottery says we have 5th overall, so back-to-back years with the 5th overall pick, hopefully we could find another good player at that spot. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Vancouver Rain Draft to Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take it to the start of year 10. We'll do some scouting, obviously, and we'll see what this team is like in the first, I guess, first 2-3 months of the season. Hopefully we're kind of close to 500 because that would be a nice way to start off the year. So let us know down below, and I'll see you guys next time.